Moses was a good man who lived in Egypt. The Egyptians had made the people of Israel their slaves, and they were very cruel to them. Moses grew up in the Pharaoh's palace, but he felt sorry for the Israelites. He wanted to help them lead better lives. One day, Moses committed a serious crime, and he was forced to escape from Egypt. He traveled through the desert for many days and eventually settled in Midian, far, far away. Moses got married to a local woman, and he led the life of a shepherd. One day, as usual, Moses was tending to some sheep on a hillside. It was then that God suddenly spoke to him. He hears a loud, booming sound like thunder, and he sees that a bush has caught on fire. There is a semicircle of golden white light surrounding the bush, and Moses hears the voice of God.
Moses, I have something to tell you.
Who is that? I cannot see you.
I am Jehovah, the one true living God, the creator of all living and non-living things.
Why are you speaking to me, God?
Do not fear me. You are a good man, and I have a very important task that I need you to perform for me. I need you to free the people of Israel and lead them to the promised land.
Huh? Why have you chosen me? I'm just an ordinary person.
You have a good, strong heart, and you have great courage. You may think you are ordinary, but you will do extraordinary things. And Moses, do not worry. You are not alone. I will be with you every step of the way.
Why would they listen to me? How will they believe that you are with me?
I will give you the power to show signs that I am with you. Throw your stick to the ground.
When Moses threw the stick on the ground, it magically turned into a snake. Moses was now convinced, and he was ready to follow the orders of God. As you wish, my lord, I will do as you say.
Ah, yes, Moses. We haven't seen you in some time now. What brings you here?
Ramos, I have come to speak on behalf of the Israeli slaves. They need to be freed. You cannot keep them prisoners like this. They are not slaves.
Oh, but they are, dear Moses. They will serve the kingdom of Egypt until they die. Every last one of them, until their very last breath.
Ramos, the God is with them. He has sent me to free these people. If you do not set the Israelites free, you will invite God's anger on you.
What God are you talking about? I have not heard of this God of yours. Why should I fear him?
He is the one true living God. He is all-powerful, and his anger can destroy your kingdom. Please free them now, so that you don't feel sorry later.
I do not believe in your God. He has no power in my kingdom. Show me a sign that your God exists.
Then Moses threw his stick on the ground, and it suddenly turned into a snake.
Ha ha ha! Nice trick.
The Pharaoh thought that this was just a trick, and he called his magicians. The court magicians arrived, and when they threw their sticks on the floor, their sticks transformed into snakes as well.
See? You can't fool me with the cheap magic tricks, Moses.
But then a miracle happened. Moses' snake started swallowing all the other snakes. The Pharaoh was terrified at first, but then he regained his composure.
That doesn't mean anything. It's just another magic trick. Your God is pitiful.
Release the Israelites to me now, and my God will show pity on you.
Leave at once, Moses. You're testing my patience now. Guards, escort him out at once.
I will leave, but I will be back. Like that, Moses visited the Pharaoh several times and tried to convince him to free the Israeli slaves. But the Pharaoh could not be convinced. One day, Moses went to the desert and asked God what he was supposed to do. God told Moses that he was going to punish the Egyptians. God sent the punishments one by one. First, he let a great flood that swallowed the whole city. Then he sent a devastating drought. Then he sent locusts that attacked the crops. Like that, God punished the Egyptians several times. In spite of all this, the Pharaoh was still not ready to free the Israelites.
Moses, why are you wasting our time like this? Whatever you or your so-called God says, I will not release the Israelites. They were born to serve this kingdom as slaves. Nothing can change that.
God wants the Israelites to be free. If you do not follow his will, he will release great plagues on you and your people. Do not punish yourself and your people with your stupidity. You have been warned many times. Now face God's anger. Moses then went to the Nile River and dipped his staff in the water. It was a miracle. The Nile water suddenly turned red and it was blood. The fish died and the water began to stink. The whole of Egypt was stinking by now. Finally, God killed all the firstborn children in Egypt, including the Pharaoh's son. This forced the Pharaoh to finally release the slaves. Moses went to the palace one last time.
Your God has killed my son and all the firstborns in Egypt. What kind of a God is this?
You brought this on yourself, Ramos. You have been warned so many times. So many signs were given to you, but you remained stubborn. You brought all this on your people. Stop this now and send the Israelites to their freedom.
Get out of my palace, Moses, and take your slaves with you. I do not want to see their faces again.
Moses quickly summoned them and led them all out of Egypt, but the Pharaoh changed his mind again. Moses had finally freed the people from the Pharaoh. The people were overjoyed that they had finally got their freedom, but their hardships were only beginning. They had to face many, many tough hurdles. A couple of days after Moses had led the Israelites out of Egypt, the Pharaoh changed his mind yet again and set his army after Moses to capture them. When Moses and his people arrived at the Red Sea, they had no idea how to cross the water. Pharaoh's army was fast approaching from behind, and the people were scared. God helped Moses again by dividing the sea and creating a path through it. Moses and his people walked through the seabed and crossed the Red Sea. But when Pharaoh and his army tried to cross the sea, the water came crashing upon them and killed all of them. The evil Pharaoh finally got the punishment he deserved. After crossing the Red Sea, Moses continued to lead the people. It was a long journey, and Moses took his people across the desert. The people were losing their patience. They started complaining to Moses.
Moses, we have been traveling for so long now. Will we ever reach the promised land?
Have faith in God. He has freed you from the Egyptians. Now he will lead you to your promised land.
So many people have died along the way, Moses. We were better off in Egypt as slaves of the Pharaoh. At least we could not have died of hunger and fatigue. A lot of children are also sick. We have so many old people who cannot walk with us. Should we watch our children die before our eyes? Is this what you promised? We should not have trusted you. You have led us into death.
I am saddened by your lack of trust. I have faith in my Lord. It is this faith that keeps me going forward. God is always with us. He will never leave us. Trust in Him, and you will not feel weak. And so they kept walking ahead through the desert. God kept watch over them. When there was nothing to eat in the desert and they were hungry, God showered a sweet bread known as manna on them. When they were thirsty, He gave them water from rocks. After many months of traveling through the desert, they arrived at the foot of Mount Sinai. This was where God had told Moses to bring the people. They camped at the foot of the mountain and decided to rest for a few days before continuing their journey across the desert. Moses told the people to stay at the bottom of the mountain, and he climbed up the mountain to speak to God. When he reached the mountaintop, God spoke to Moses. God spoke to Moses for 40 days and 40 nights. He finally gave Moses a stone tablet that described the 10 commandments that his people would have to follow for their entire lives. God gave the following commandments to Moses. 1. Thou shalt have no gods before me. 2. Thou shalt not make graven images. 3. Thou shalt not take the Lord's name in vain. 4. Remember to keep holy the Sabbath. 5. Honor thy father and thy mother. 6. Thou shalt not kill. 7. Thou shalt not commit adultery. 8. Thou shalt not steal. 9. Thou shalt not bear false witness. 10. Thou shalt not covet. God made these commandments to ensure that men and women lived in harmony and lived peaceful and happy lives.
Many years after Joseph, son of Jacob, was given the gift of reading dreams and put in control of all of Egypt, a new Pharaoh had taken the throne of Egypt. But this Pharaoh was not kind. He had made God's people, the Israelites, into his slaves. He forced them to work all day and treated them very badly. They were made to do heavy work and not given any respect. The other Egyptians were also unkind to the Israelites and made their difficult lives even worse. The Egyptians made them carry heavy rocks day and night and work in dangerous building sites. Many Israelites were injured, either by the work or by the cruelty of the Egyptian slave owners. The Israelites suffered greatly, and this was far from the glory that Joseph had brought to the Israelites in the land of Egypt. The Israelites worked hard and suffered under their slave masters. But as Egypt prospered, there was more and more work that the Egyptians needed the Israelites to do for them. Over time, the number of Israelites enslaved in Egypt grew and grew, until eventually their number became large enough that the Pharaoh started to have second thoughts.
The number of Israelites continues to grow with every year. Soon they will be too many, and they may start to want power. This cannot happen.
The Pharaoh became deeply scared that if the Israelites continued to grow in number, that they may try to seek some power and could even take over Egypt. He wanted to do whatever he could to make sure this did not happen.
Something must be done. I will make sure that the Israelites will never grow too powerful. I will rid the Israelites of all their young boys to make sure they cannot continue to grow in numbers.
And so, the Pharaoh gave the terrible order that all the baby boys born to the Israelites must be thrown into the mighty river. The Israelites were heartbroken, as their beloved children were taken away from them. They could not believe the cruelty of the Pharaoh had come this far. To ensure that his cruel plan could not possibly fail, the Pharaoh instructed his servants that this must be done every time a new baby was born. Each and every one of them was to be thrown into the river. One day, an Israelite woman named Jochebed gave birth to a beautiful baby boy. She was terrified of the Pharaoh's evil rule that all baby boys must be thrown into the river. She decided she would not let her precious son suffer the same fate as the other Israelite boys, and that she would do whatever it took to spare her precious baby's life. She decided not to take him to the river and to hide him instead. However, as time went on, she realized this plan could not last forever. After 3 months, she finally accepted that she could not keep her sweet baby hidden from the Egyptians. She thought long and hard about what to do to keep her son alive. After careful thought, she had an idea. Jochebed decided to fix her baby's basket to make sure no water could enter it. She put her precious baby inside the basket and secretly took him to the river. With great sadness, the baby's mother placed the basket into the river and watched as her son drifted away. Although it was painful, she hoped she had done the right thing, and that this would be enough to save her son's life. As the baby drifted down the river, his older sister Miriam followed his basket, watching closely to see what would happen to her baby brother. She wanted to make sure that he would be safe and that God would not let any harm come to him. As the baby drifted down the river Nile, the daughter of the Pharaoh happened to be getting ready to take a bath in the river's waters. Just as she was getting ready to bathe, she spotted something floating down the river and realized that it was a baby in a basket. Miriam secretly watched on as the princess ordered her servants to fetch the baby in the basket. The baby was crying, and the princess could not help but take pity on the poor young boy. She knew that this baby was one of the Israelite boys, and decided that she would save his life and would adopt him as her own son. The baby's sister, Miriam, could see that the princess was going to spare her brother, and approached her to share the truth. She told the princess that he was indeed one of the Israelites, and asked if it would be possible for the princess to have him raised by an Israelite nanny. The princess agreed and ordered for an Israelite woman to be brought to nurse her newly adopted son. Amazingly, when Miriam went with the Egyptians to the Israelites to look for a nurse for the princess's new baby boy, the woman they selected was Jochebed, the baby's true mother. Jochebed was brought to the royal palace to help raise the baby boy. The princess decided to call her new adopted son Moses and declared it to all of Egypt. The name Moses meant "he who was pulled from the water" in Hebrew, the language of the Israelites. It also sounded a lot like the Egyptian word for son, so nobody noticed the hidden meaning. The baby Moses had been spared from the Pharaoh's cruel plan to rid Egypt of all Hebrew baby boys. God had saved Moses' life and allowed him to be raised by his own mother as a prince of Egypt. Nobody knew it when he was pulled from the water as a baby, but Moses would go on to become one of the most important of God's people. Eventually, little baby Moses would grow up to be an important prophet and bring the word of God to his people. He would help the Israelites break free from slavery in Egypt and take them back to their homeland. God spared this little baby's life for an important reason, as he was to serve an important role in spreading God's message to all. God felt that Moses was so important that it was he who received the 10 Commandments and was charged with teaching God's wisdom to his people. Moses is one of the most important figures in the Bible, and just as he was saved by being pulled from the water, he would later go on to save the rest of the Israelites by leading them out of Egypt through the Red Sea.